are we doing? Are we okay? Yeah. I know I speak fast and I have an American accent, but we're doing all right? They're very different companies. The only way I think that you would look at Amazon and Cisco and competing is something called software-defined networking. Instead of buying physical products, using software products to define it. Amazon is a really big player in that. The reason that we started with Cisco is Cisco did not skate to where the puck was going. They skated to where the puck was. By the time they showed up, the market was
huge problem to solve right now.
Cisco. Yes, they're a company that's
you know, it's a war, and Apple, Amazon, and Google, and a few others are fighting for the empty spaces. And the empty spaces are there because companies like Cisco and IBM, they just didn't see it at the right time.
If you're curious about that specific type of market and how it's evolving, a really interesting company to look at is EMC. So EMC is the largest technology company in New England, the biggest storage company on the planet, and they realize storage is going to be something that you don't buy physical hardware for, you just rent it in the cloud. So EMC bought a software virtualization company called VMware. They're buying software companies. They're trying to transition from a hardware company to a services company and a software company. So to drill down on that, if you're interested in that kind of strategy, what do you do if you sell hardware? I would look at EMC versus Cisco and some other companies out there. Does that sound good? And I apologize, I know it would be great to kind of dive in a little bit more. I really want to encourage that, but I also want us to try to get through some of the material too. So is that a fair trade-off? Yeah, we're doing okay. Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about another company that saw the three curves, saw the fact that you can take a fast, cheap computer, you can put it in your pocket, you can load it up with storage, and because the internet is fast, you can steal songs from a kid from Sweden. And that's Apple. And Apple takes a look at that, and I shouldn't say that Apple deliberately built a business off of music theft, but they built the iPod. Now, what's interesting about the iPod, a couple of years before Apple introduced the iPod, Michael Dell said Apple should shut the company down, return cash to shareholders, because they're never going to be able to win. Jobs comes back to Apple, and he says, no, I think we think beyond computing. And in fact, I was with my students when the iPhone was being introduced, because one of the alums runs Apple, or he's the head marketing guy at Apple. So we were in row number 6, when Steve Jobs says, we're not going to call the company Apple Computer anymore, we're going to call it Apple Inc., because we're thinking about this well overall. And it started with the iPod. The iPod, when it was introduced, $400 in the United States. Jobs said 1,000 songs in your pocket. That's 5 gigabytes of storage on a hard drive that spins around in your pocket. Today, Apple says, we'll give you 5 gigabytes of storage, not for $400, for free. For free. That's what happens with those three curves. Why will they give that stuff away for free? It becomes like the Hotel California. You guys know that song? Where you can leave anytime you want, or you can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave. All of your songs in Apple's clouds, all of your photos in Apple's clouds, all of your documents in Apple's clouds. The likelihood that you're going to leave is going to be more of a challenge. Now we'll talk a little bit about Spotify, because this is a great example of how Apple didn't see something coming. But man, for the most part, this has been devastating. First, let's look at what it did to the industry. If you sold music, nobody was talking about Apple when I was a student. And then, you had Walmart, Best Buy, Target, these big box stores, they sold most of the music in the United States. Then iTunes started coming along. And then iTunes got bigger, and iTunes sells more music than anybody online or off than they have for years and years and years. The problem we have today is streaming. We'll talk a little bit about that later on when we talk about disruptive technology. But if you didn't pay attention to these curves that were related to your industry, you're gone. You don't exist anymore. And so, we've seen what's happened with music distribution. But let's look what's happened to the device itself. Because Moore's law means you get increased capacity, you get increased computing power, and it gets cheaper, well, the black and white became color. The color became a camera. The camera and still images became moving images, so all of a sudden there's a video player. You could download movies, and you could download television shows. And then when we get to the iPhone, well, it's not a phone. It's a computer that's in your pocket. And this has really exploded the industry for Apple as well. So we'll come back just a bit. Then Apple comes up with this thing called the iPad. Analysts don't really know what to make of it. It looks like a big iPhone without the phone. The most bullish analyst in the United States, the well-respected, among the respected analysts on Wall Street, said Apple's going to sell 7 million iPads the first year. They said it's going to be really successful and sell 7 million. That was the most bullish analyst. Apple sold 15 million iPads. In the first year, the iPad business alone was big enough to be Fortune 255, the 255th biggest company by sales in the United States. You broke that out separately. Whereas Apple today, it's the most valuable company by market cap. I should have updated these because this is a couple months old. It's the most profitable firm in the United States. In fact, if you take a look at the top 3 most profitable quarters of any firm in business history, 2 of the most profitable quarters are Apple's. 2 of the 3 most, and the other one was a petroleum company. So this company has ridden these curves magically. Is the watch going to work? I don't know. They've got enough money to experiment. What about TV? One of my former students was hired to be as part of Apple's TV product. Before Jobs died, he said, the television is a terrible experience. We think we cracked the nut. We think we made TV better. So one of my students can't tell me what he's working on, but Apple's clearly got new devices that they're working on with television. Maybe we'll see them later this year. When you think about consumer electronics, I grew up with Sony being the dominant player. Walkman, Sony TVs. Sony stock price, Apple's stock price. Riding these curves to victory. 10 years. It's a little 10 years. Yep. To be not just successful from Dell's perspective, the most profitable and the most valuable company in the United States. By the way, the iPhone, to get back to it, the iPhone has about 15 to 16% of phone sales. They have 92% of smartphone profits. 92% of profits. Please.
I'm going to say about the streams. I just want to ask something. I'm seeing, I like a stream fight about with Spotify, Superplay, and the new one called Tidal, made about artists to earn more money because they are complaining about the payment of Spotify, Superplay, and if you can say a little bit more about that.
Sure. A few things about that. One is, we talk about seeing the future. One area where Apple did not see the future is in how music was changing and how streaming was becoming, something consumers were using. And in fact, where streaming had occurred, it was outside the United States. So streaming wasn't very popular in the United States. Consumers were buying their music. The royalty rates are different than they are in Europe. Streaming started the biggest player in streaming today is Spotify. And although Spotify has a strong presence in the United States, they're from Sweden. They've got a big presence in London as well, and the US is a fairly new market for them. Now you mentioned a second piece to this too, is the fact that Apple doesn't own the content. So satisfying content providers is also really important. Steve Jobs was a master negotiator, and he convinced content providers to sell their software online and said, look, we're going to be able to protect your digital rights management. Eventually, there was no copy protection on songs you bought online, and customers still went to Apple for convenience. But there's a real concern today that artists aren't being paid enough, which is why Jay-Z and some others have created this thing called Tidal. I can't tell you for sure how this is going to shake out. We don't know who is going to win in this space. The reason why Apple bought Beats a couple of years ago, so Dr. Dre's label and Jimmy Iovine, two folks that are very well known in the recording industry, wasn't so much for the headphones. It was largely because of their knowledge in the music space and their streaming service. So Apple introduced something called Beats One just not even 2 months ago, a little over a month ago, the Beats Online streaming service. And I don't know if I see enough there for me to switch from being a Spotify customer. I'm already a Spotify customer.
No, they just launched iMusic.
Right, iMusic, it's called Beats, so like Beats is part of that space there. So I'm not sure if that's enough to get somebody to switch from being Spotify. There's also another concern that you have here too. It's a concern that people have with Apple, that have with Amazon. When you have a winner-take-all or winner-take-most player in the space, they have tremendous bargaining power. So So if you are a supplier into that industry where there's one concentrated, powerful player, you might not necessarily want to facilitate there being one dominant player in the space. And again, we go into this with a little bit more depth, but I'll just give you a taste of it right now. For years, we've seen the music industry had tried to get Apple to move away from 99 cents a song in the United States.